This guy, I feel like he's one of the last old school like movie stars because he can actually act his ass off too. And then she locks eyes with Frasier, and she just like immediately just.
Everyone has their own idea and their own opinion. It's the jerk store. We're going with the jerk store.
Happened in the 90s.
I think Michael Jai White, you know, if he has a chance to play any character now that we would see in like a comic book movie or something that's like, a property that might be made into a movie, what would you love to see him in? And I'm thinking Bishop from X-Men. You throw a nice long curly wig on Michael Jai White. I
That'd be
think
dope.
he would be a great Bishop. I think he's underappreciated. He's very cool.
I think he'd be a dope Beast.
I think honestly, you throw Michael Jai White in a comic book movie, I think he would kill it as no matter what. And if people could get over the race thing, I would love to see
We're
Michael
talking
Jai.
comic book.
I would love to see him play an older Batman. Throw some gray in his beard, be like an angry Batman.
The race thing is something comic book fans can't get over. I'm not saying all, but they're just and take race out of the picture. They're just the hardest to please, I feel. Them and Star Wars. Like,
yeah, definitely. Anything that's like an established sci-fi thing, those people ravenous.
Like some people might be pleased, some people might think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but there's going to be a sect who are like, Buddhist man, tomatoes.
I used to be kind of like that, where I like things, and you're like, well, why are they doing this or that? And you get kind of like caught up in your feelings because it's like a nostalgic thing or whatever. But as I get older, what I don't like is when people like Star Wars comes out, or even like these comic book movies, and like the hype machine gets rolling before the movie comes out. So people think in their head what they want to see. And when they don't get to see that, no matter if it's a good movie or not, like there's some sort of inherent disappointment in like what they've watched because it didn't live up to like this weird dream movie that they had in their head.
It jumped the shark after the trailer, basically.
So that's what I like. I also think the race thing comes into where it's like people have seen like Peter Parker or whatever, or any like whatever, name any character. You could even be like Superman or somebody super old like that, or Batman. And as soon as somebody, or even like James Bond, where people are like, well, maybe this black guy could play it, or like this suave, like European dude, like Italian guy or something. And they're like, absolutely not. I think that happened with Childish Gambino and Spider-Man. I think it did happen with Idris Elba and Batman and James Bond, for that matter.
Bond. Yeah.
And I think it's hilarious because what does it matter? It's a fucking guy that has spider webs coming out of him. And there is a black Spider-Man now and people love him. So I guess you just have to change his name. But I find that hilarious. It's very funny.
It just defeats their memory of the character that they saw. He's not Roger Moore. He's not Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan.
I can't be that because it doesn't look like me now. Well, you're not going to be Spider-Man, kid. Because if you get bitten by a radioactive spider in real life, you're probably just going to get cancer and die, or something awful is going to happen to you,
Yeah. The cool stuff you see him doing, you're not going to be able to do.
But Michael Jai White, I mean, obviously we could throw him in a Blade movie. Yeah, everybody wants to see what's his face from that Moon. I forget that guy's name. He's in everything. Really good actor, but the new Blade guy.
Ali Mashed Potatoes?
Yeah. They want to see him do it. And Wesley Snipes did it, but you throw fucking Michael Jai White in that. I mean, damn. You're right. Throw him in as Beast. That's an interesting go-to. I like that. Or, you know what? Make Spawn again and just make him Spawn again. Give him like the full CGI treatment. Let us see what it really would do if he's in there,
With better technology now.
Yeah, I mean, they could make it for half the budget and make it look 30 times as good as it did in whatever year that came out in. Because he still looks the part. He still has the voice. The voice is half of that movie anyway. It's like that's the gravelly, like crazy voice of Spawn. He's behind a mask. Hey, Hollywood, listen to me. Listen to me and Steve. We're the tastemakers here. Michael Jai White, let's get him to the echelon that he deserves to be in, and not I mean, he's a successful guy. I don't even want to indicate this guy's not doing as well as he should because he's doing great.
but
But
he could do better.
yeah, he could be like at Arnold Schwarzenegger level. Because to be honest with
Totally.
you, he's right there, Steve.
He is.
He's bodied up and he could karate kick a guy. Arnold Schwarzenegger had no martial arts abilities.
He did not. I wouldn't want to try him though, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Dude, that would be sick. And I actually read online because I was thinking about Michael Jai White when I was thinking of this idea. There was an idea where him and the British white guy, his name's Ray Park, he played Darth Maul in the first prequel, like the guy with the red face in the Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
That guy's a hell of a martial artist. And they were going to play Luke Cage and Iron Fist, which actually ended up being Netflix shows. Luke Cage was like a big brawny black dude. It was a, so, and Mahershala Ali was in that show, like a weird 6 degrees of separation. But they were actually going to do a show with those two dudes. That would have been great. We never got it, but yeah, dude, shout out to fucking goddamn Michael Jai White. Every chance I get, Steve, I will just praise this dude.
And speaking of Michaels, we're both in agreement that Michael Keaton is our favorite Batman, and we're going to talk about him. Yeah, we're going to talk about him a little later. Like, what would you classify him as? Because we've talked about action stars. We talk about Bruce Willis, Nick Cage, Sly, MJ Dub, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Where does he? Is he a part of that company, that group?
I think he's too good of an actor to just like pigeonhole him as an action and within all those action guys, even though he was right there with Batman. But if you got to think about remember like the comedy stuff he did?
He started off as a comedian.
Yeah. Johnny Dangerously, that weird like mob movie he did like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Multiplicity, Mr. Mom. This guy, I feel like he's one of the last old school like movie stars because he can actually act his ass off too. I think he's up there with like a Kurt Russell. I feel like if we're gonna put him with like a contemporary, because Kurt Russell can act like a motherfucker too.
Let's not forget about Beetlejuice.
Yeah, but Batman. I mean, this guy plus Jackie Brown, Steve. Let's not forget
what is that classified as? Is that an action or is that a drama? What suspense?
Jackie Brown?
Yeah.
I think that's more of a drama. I wouldn't call there's not a lot of action in it. I mean, there is a little bit, but it's not I wouldn't classify that as an action movie. But when you think about Keaton, dude, this guy, he can play funny. He was even in an episode, one of my favorite episodes of Frasier, where he just played like this grifter and it was hilarious. But yeah, Keaton, he's a renaissance man, Steve.
Toy Cop. I'm looking at RoboCop and Toy Story 3, but he was in both of those. The Dream Team.
I'm just trying to think of like some of the lesser known things. He was in that movie Out of Sight, which coincidentally, Steve, was one of the few times that movie studios allowed a character to go from one movie to another in a different studio, and he played the same cop that he did in Jackie Brown in the movie Out of Sight.
That's the one with George Clooney and
Farina and J-Lo and shit. Yeah. Hell
Don
yeah.
Cheadle.
I forget who directed it. I think that's a Steven Soderbergh movie or something.
It is.
Okay. So my memory is not too bad. But yeah, there's a lot of famous Mikes out there, for different reasons. But I got to say, Michael Keaton, anytime I see him in a movie, I gotta check it out. Like even that movie Birdman he did that won all those Oscars and stuff wasn't my favorite movie, but he was great in that, and it was kind of playing off his life a little bit. So this guy, he's a legend, dude. Beetlejuice, Batman, the guy in Desperate Measures, Steve.
The guy in Desperate Measures. This is Steve G. Imagine What Happened in the 90s, a show where we talk about what happened in the 90s. So get out your My So-Called Life in My Own Private Idaho. Because can't you see what you do to me? Our love was meant to be. You were meant for me. Oh, baby, can't you see?
Nice.
Shout out the total.
One for the ladies, Steve.
Today, my friend, we're talking all things January 30th. in the 90s. Starting off in 1992, Cheers is airing season 10, episode 16, One Hugs, the Other Doesn't. A Boston performance by children's singer Nanny Gee for Frederick's birthday sheds light on Frasier's past as Lilith and the barflies discover Nanny is Frasier's first wife. Frasier had forgotten to mention this fact to Lilith, and then Nanny arrives at Cheers, and she and Lilith soon get into a catfight.
Mm. Frasier Crane, Steve, has the ladies just lusting over him in this.
It makes him feel loved.
I mean, you got to just step back. I know it's like tough being in there, but as a dude in that sitch, you just got to take a step back and just appreciate life. You know, right there, it's just like, this is it. I got to remember this one. You know, thank you, God.
I like Lilith.
Lilith's cool. I mean, she's cool. I would not want to be in a marriage with her, but Lilith will get your back. I don't know if I'd want to sex with her, but you know, you do. You want to give her a little swirl action, Steve? I feel like it would be cold entering that though.
I like dark white girls.
Well, speaking of dark white girls, Steve, we get the first glimpse of this episode, and it's Carla, and she's going off on somebody on the phone. She's like, "Get out of here! I don't care. Get out of here! I don't owe you any money, you blood-sucking leech or whatever." She's going off on this person. She hangs the phone up, slams it. People are like, "Geez, like, what's going on with her?" And I forget who said, Cliff or somebody's like, "She must owe somebody some money," and then she like says, "No, that's my mom."
Yeah.
She'd get her social security check.
Yeah, her social security check is late. Like it's my fault that she's getting old.
Fucking bitch. But damn, Carla though, don't fuck around with Carla. Would you? I mean, Steve, smash her past Carla.
You still have to be attractive. I think Lilith's attractive and she's on that dark shit.
Okay. You don't find Carla looks like a mini sensational Sherry though. You know?
No, she doesn't. Well,
I just knew that was gonna fucking hurt your feelings, Steve. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she like Lilith has that Christina Ricci appeal, like she could be her aunt or something, and I'm here for it. Rebecca, she comes in, she's like, "Did you hear the way she talked to her mother? I never talked to my mother like that." And she taps on Carla, is like, "Hey, can you give my mom a call?"
Yeah. Sonia, if I talked to Sonia like that, Steve, there would be a murder. My dad would come and murder me. So Carla,
you would never.
I wouldn't. I couldn't. She's a lovely lady.
She is.
And then we go to the credits. We get that nice song, you know, that I still think Woody Harrelson sang. But Lilith and Frasier, they come to Cheers and they brought Freddie. Because that's what we did in the 80s and 90s, Steve. Bring a kid to a bar, you know?
Yeah.
They might have
full of smoke.
Yeah, fuck it. A couple of alcoholics. Maybe there's a pinball machine, but just let them get around this. Turns out Sam, good old Get Pussy crew Sam here, he, instead of trying to get some sniz, got a nice little present for Frasier and the family, tickets to the Nanny Gee shows, Steve. Which, why? Where does this come from with Sam? What's happening? What season is this? Season 10. Sam's softening up a little bit, I feel like.
The evolution of Sam. It's the Tickle Tummy Tour, too. I mean, it's the 92 Tickle Tummy Tour, Matt.
Triple T. That is, I mean, you got to go to that. People are talking. The tickets, not necessarily like hot, but Woody wants to go because he's fallen in love with Nanny Gee. That's right up his like alley, and it's really sort of at his intelligence level, Steve. Speaks to him.
That's fair to say. And then so we get to the concert and Woody's there. He's looking for Sam and the Cranes, and he's trying to swap seats because he just found a booster.
Oh, I mean, he got a scalp ticket, but it's way in the way back, Steve. Not with the chuds in the last row. He's in the row right before that. So he's not the losers, those freaks back there, but he is trying to scam a seat. He's like, hey, somebody exchange. And everyone's like, we're good here where people are not doing cocaine and stuff. And then he tries to get Freddie to exchange the shit, Steve.
For $10.
I mean, at least he's paying up. But that's not going to fly. So Woody's got to go back with the chuds. And so now the show starts. And Frasier's used to going to shows, but not this, Steve. And he's like much too classy for this, you know? He's like somebody in the front row at a stand-up show that's just like cross-armed, but he's sitting there and he's like, this is stupid. Look at the lighting. What are they thinking with this? This is childish. It's like, dude, you're here, just enjoy it. But as Nanny Gee comes out, he's like looking at Sam. He talks to Sam. He's like, man, I know that bitch from someplace. I can't put my finger on it. But then as he's looking, he's like, wait, holy crap, that's my first wife, Nanette Guzman. And he tries to say it to Sam. Lilith hears him talking and is like, what are you guys talking about? But apparently he hasn't told Lilith that he was married before, Steve. And that's a no-no.
And she hears it. 'Cause she's like, I thought I was your first wife. And he's like, well, I married her in college and it was brief. So I barely even remember.
Yeah, and if she saw me on the streets, she wouldn't even know me from anybody. Just a quick little fling. But this leads to the segment in the net show where Nanny Gee comes out to the crowd because she needs to meet some new friends. That's what this is all about. It's a kid's show. So she starts singing like, hey, da, 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 da. And then she locks eyes with Frasier and she just like immediately just in front of everybody, Steve. I mean, as a parent of anyone else in the show, what do you do at this point? Because now you got to have the sex talk with like a 5-year-old, Steve.
That was a part of the act, son. But it's even though, because we covered another Cheers where Lilith, she hops on Sam on public access television
Yeah.
right in front of Frasier and whoever was watching that show.
Yeah, and
So-
that's a televised event, Steve. This is just a Nanny Gee show in Boston. You
Not
know,
on
most
air.
of these people are hammered, just trying to sleep it off while their kids enjoy a show. Frasier, though, gets the full tongue action in front of his wife, in front of everybody. He's popping a boner at a kid's show. Shit's all crazy at this point. But I mean, as somebody who was like not wanting to go to this and then this happens, what a delightful surprise, you know?
And then we come back to the bar, and Woody, he's telling everybody, yeah, Nanny G, she shook everyone's hand. She even kissed some guy in the fourth row, not even realizing that it was Frasier.
Yeah. He's like, I was just some loser chud back in the back. I didn't even get a fucking wave, for God's sake. Lilith just in her sorrows, Steve. She can't believe Frasier used to date that bitch. And she says that. She lets the fucking like hoity toity, it's gone, Steve. She's ready to.
Throw them hands.
She does. I mean, she's like, even like as she's leaving, she starts like Weird Owling a Nanny Gee song, but it's about poisoning Nanny G's, Steve.
I want to scratch your eyes out, drain your blood out. Oh, you had to be there.
And then Rebecca, she's here. And she's like, well, I mean, I get it because this happened to me in high school. And she's like, I talk about it, but I'm going to go crying immediately. So she's in tears. This has happened to everybody, Steve. Maybe not a fake marriage, or a first secret marriage, but, you know, we've all wondered. You know, you wonder about these people that your significant other dated or fucked or whatever. So Lilith, as much as she's a mental professional, just like Frasier, it's too much, Steve. It's causing a lot of ruckus.
And Frasier comes in. Carla gives him crap like, I heard you used to marry a famous children's entertainer. What, Burl Ives wasn't available? And then Norm, he keeps it real with Frasier. He's like, look, why don't you tell her, man? Marriage is all about trust. If you can't trust her, man, like how can y'all live together? And he just throws some realness on him. And Cliff's like, where'd you get that from? Matlock.
Yeah. I mean, he says that he goes even deeper because he's like, have you ever said you loved her? Do you cry with? Do you sleep with her? It's like crazy shit where it's like, yeah, I love that Matlock though, Steve. Hell yeah. I guess he's throwing knowledge like that. I thought he was just a lawyer, but shit. But Lilith is like, yeah, fuck that bitch. Frasier hears that. And he's like, oh, okay, well, you don't like her, whatever. So her being here to apologize is not cool because he brought Nanny Gee. And as soon as he says that, Nanny Gee comes in and she's just like, she's in love her, Steve. She wants a hug, you know? But Lilith's not a hugger.
I've always been a huggy, kissy person. Oh, I bet. I feel like I want to hug you. You don't have to hug back.
Lilith wants to slap this bitch. Woody tries to get an autograph, but then he gets ignored and he takes that super personally. He's like, God damn it. Like it's just trash.
But Nanny, she's a trooper. She offers to come sing for Frederick's birthday. And they're thinking that it's going to be at Lilith's house. She's like, I really just don't want anyone to come.
Yeah, because everyone's like, oh, Nanny Gee, my kids would love that. My nephew would love that. That's great.
Yeah.
We'd love to come. So Sam, to help out, it's like, well, you know, you don't want to have people over there. I'll have it at the bar. Let's have a kids party at a bar. Everyone, why not? You know, we'll get fucked up. Nanny Gee will do whatever. She'll probably blow Frasier in the bathroom. It's this whole thing. But Sam steps up, Steve. So now we got a party at Cheers, kids party. Everyone's coming. Everyone's got some kind of kid that wants to see Nanny Gee. And this is a private show, dude. This is like if Barney the dinosaur showed up in the 90s and was dancing around in somebody's backyard. This is fucking unheard of.
I like how Cliff and Norm are punking the kids at the food table.
I mean, Cliff gets punked because some kids like he says something to Cliff, and Cliff's like, "You're not the boss of me." It's in the kid's face. It's weird these kids though because they're eating like the spread, and they're eating tuna fish sandwiches. Steve, which I love a nice tuna fish sandwich, but kids, I don't know. That seems like a weird one. Frasier's just like glowing about it. He's like, I can't believe Nanette got so famous. Super impressed with this lady. Obviously, still a little turned on from the kiss. And he's saying this shit right in front of Lilith. And you can tell she's like, I'm going to fucking. And
then he tries to console her. But while that's happening, Nanny Gee walks in. He's like, she's here. She's here.
Everybody.
I always like Frasier, he's supposed to be like the aristocratic one of the crew. But like he has these moments of him just like turning into like a pre-adolescent little boy.
He becomes a bro, dude. He wants the adulation just like anybody. You want somebody to be like, oh, damn, you hit that? You want something. So he's all about that. And then we get a little insight into some of the kids that these people have because Carla has some kids at this thing. Nanny Gee's doing some autographs around the bar. Right. She signs an autograph for this little kid, I think that's Carla's, and this little fucking G takes it, walks over to another kid and's like, hey, do you want an autograph Nanny Gee record? And the kid's like, yeah, I'd love one. He's like, $20. Yeah. That's awesome, dude. That's a baller. That's baller status. So Carla's raising him right. Woody, he even gets a moment with Nanny Gee, Steve. She sees him and she's like, wait, I know that smile. That one, I haven't seen it since the show. And he's like, oh my God, she knows me. She loves me. She knew who I was. And then he walks away just to like, you know, gloat. And Sam's like, gives her like a 5. And she's like, did I do okay? He's like, yeah, he's dim, you know?
Yeah. You think he bought it? Of course. He's an easy sell. And then Cliff, he cuts in line and the kid calls him out on it. Like, hey, you could. Hey, you're not the boss of me. Give Norm a high five. I love that.
I also like Woody getting played by a kid because after he gets like the kudos from Nanny Gee, he sees a kid and he's like, dude, she knows me. She knew me out of a crowd. She's magic. And the kid's like, get a life, loser. And this is how kids are, Steve. These kids are savages. They will rip your heart out and not even think about it. You know, I've seen it happen.
The kids from Bostonia.
Especially kids from Boston. See, fucking queer. You know, they were saying that shit. And then we see Norm. Norm's got a kid, Steve. Norm's kid, strong genes on Norm because it looks like a little him. And this kid's eyeing up Norm's stool. It's in the genetics. You know?
I think that's Vera's nephew, actually.
Okay, well, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. Like somebody, and it looks like he's turning into Norm, basically.
He looks like Norm's like, Norm, though.
Yeah. Get out of here, kid. You don't want to sit in this stool. I farted in it 1,000 times. And then he's just like, I wish somebody would have said that to me when I was younger. Because, you know, he's going to die here, Steve. You know? Norm's going to die at Cheers.
Lonely on that stool. And Nanny Gee, she comes in and she's like, I was going to start singing the Doodlebug song. The way she says that is all animated. Just
It's weird Emma Thompson plays it's because she's such like a hoity-toity actor, and she's playing like the most simplistic like kids actress, you know. Let's smile and sing and
Well, in real life, she would eventually be Nanny McPhee, which is like a really popular series, man. Like when I worked at Best Buy, parents were coming in left and right to buy that shit. And this was like
Ugh.
in the 2000s. Are you familiar with Nanny
Is that the one where
McPhee?
she had like the big fat wart on her nose? I think she was kind of ugly. It was like Mary Poppins, but with
In a
like a
way.
weird, yeah. And then Nanny McPhee in the Frasier verse, Steve, actually transformed into two characters because Nanny McPhee or Nanette Guzman was his first wife. So in the show, his first wife is a hippie chick that is shown like through some sort of psychological examination. So we meet her and she's just like a hippie strumming on a guitar. And then we meet Nanny Gee later. And Nanny Gee's played by none other than Aunt Jackie from
Aunt Jackie.
Roseanne, and they, I mean, get the straight fucking to the point where Nanny G's trying to screw him in front of her husband who's on Frasier's balcony. She's like, he's so boring. And she's just horny. She's a crazy hornball. So
I gotta
this,
find that episode.
it's a great episode. But yeah, dude, but she starts singing because she's got a song for the special boy. So everybody's like gathered around. She starts singing. But when she starts singing, Steve, she's not looking at Freddie at all. She's singing to Frasier. Lilith notices, and like one of the things is like, when we laid together. She's like, wait, what the fuck? And then it turns into a World Star video because Lilith can't handle it now. She just gets up, starts attacking in front of all the kids. So now these kids, they're heroes getting the shit kicked out of them by the birthday boy's mom. But, you know, Lilith, she's territorial, Steve. That's her man. You know, she doesn't want to hear about this shit.
I'm the luckiest man in the world. The next scene, they're like, Fraser's talking to Lilith, and he said, I love seeing you fight over me. It made me feel loved.
Yeah.
You were vicious out there. Nanny G, she was vicious too. Then Lilith looks at him like, but you were the most vicious.
you kicked the most ass, babe. Woody's clearing up all the loose hair that got ripped out. And as he's like doing that, he finds a present that was left that just kind of got lost in the mix through the fight and everything. So they open that up. It's from Nanny G. And she gave Freddie a beautiful Nanny G doll, Steve, that talks. So they hit the talk button. But even in this fucking toy, Steve, Nanny G's throwing her digits into the song, like, and it's just a repeat. My phone number, but Lilith's like, she's giving you her phone number. And Fraser's like, give me a fucking pad real quick. And then everybody knows her phone number because Woody and Sam start singing it, Steve. And that's not great. That's not cool for the bros.
5556792.
Yeah, so that's going in the trash. But Fraser's going to try to mentally take note of those digits, just, you know, in case things. I mean, the marriage is going, so it's going to end in divorce at some point, Steve. So fuck it.
Yeah. The way she ripped the head off that doll.
I just love Nanny G's like, give me that. I want to record something special for Freddie, and it's like, I'll lick your butt like I used to. Like, what the fuck?
And that's your curly hairs. In 1994, NBC is airing the Super Bowl 28 at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, GA. My Dallas Cowboys beat the Buffalo Bills 30-13. The MVP is Emmett, the man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I know you love this. I remember this.
Oh man, I remember what I ate in that Super Bowl. My mom made Philly cheesesteaks, and I had sour cream Lay's. That was the meal.
Sour cream or sour cream and onions, Steve?
Sour cream and onion Lay's.
I was gonna say just sour cream Lays. I'm not a fan, but here's how good the Cowboys were, Steve. I was remembering this myself. Before I moved to Ohio, I was a Cowboys fan, Steve, because they were always winning so much. So I had Cowboys Zubaz pants. I had Cowboys shirts with Tasmanian Devil with Cowboys gear on. So a young Matt loved this. Who didn't like this? The Buffalo Bills fans who just kept getting their hearts broken, you know, which we
Every
also
fucking
love.
time.
I
And
love it.
man, like this was the last championship that the Cowboys won with Jimmy Johnson. They could have been so great.
Well, they soon
Even
beat
great.
the Steelers, Steve. Like, wasn't that the year after this, or pretty close
Well,
to that?
that was Barry Switzer. That was 96, and Barry Switzer was the coach, man. But this team right here, Alvin Harper, Nate Newton, Eric Williams, Jay Novacek, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith, Daryl Johnston, the fucking Moose, Tony Tolbert, Charles Haley, man. Like, I
It
think
was a
Charles
Pro
Haley was
Bowl
like,
team.
it was a Pro Bowl team. Darren Woodson, Leon Lett, man. I think he was the leader. Charles Haley was in Super Bowl wins until Tom Brady passed him.
Yeah, I mean, this was a legendary team, Steve. Jimmy Johnson, everybody, even the coach was fucking a Hall of Famer. It was just like almost unfair, but at the time, I loved it.
Yeah, man. My
They were
favorite coach.
America's team then. Now I'm not so sure. Now I'm a Steelers fan,
Well,
but shout out.
I mean, the team, the popular team now, I think, is the Chiefs, especially if they make history
Boo!
with 3 in a row. But yeah, man, uh,
I hate
so
that.
many great memories from these teams, and I maybe in my lifetime I'll get to see another Cowboys Super Bowl.
When did
But
Dion go to the Cowboys?
96,
Okay.
it was halfway through that season that he
Damn, they
joined.
had all these legends, and then they add Dion to the sauce. Jesus Christ, Steve.
Now that is my favorite team of all
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I get that. It's not my favorite team because they beat the shit out of
Team,
the Steelers in the Super Bowl, and that was when it really hurt, Steve. Because I adopted the Steelers to combat all of the negativity of Ohio people and their love of shitty Ohio teams. You know, I don't get it. You
but
know,
hey,
I
the
don't.
Browns still haven't won any, and they won two in your lifetime. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, Matt.
I know, but I can't be happy with that, Steve. I need instant gratification and constant gratification because I'm a modern person, Steve. I can't live in the past. I was on the rush bus, and then the rush bus crashed off of a cliff, and now I'm left with nothing, Steve. I'm in a pile of rubble, smoldering, with the
Hey,
hopes that maybe someday the Steelers will do something again. But right now, you and we're both just stuck in the doldrums, you know.
hey,
But I'm
Chris
I'm
Hansen,
happy to be like that, you know. I'm happy to be here with you, miserable, but together in misery, you know.
sharing our misery, commiserating. 1986, Ministry would release Filth Pig, and I love me some Ministry. I know that's not fully your bag, but I do think they're great to work out to. They get you pumped up. Ministry is like Rob Zombie with 9 Inch Nails, and like the elements that I love about both of those bands are in Ministry, and it's really a one-man band, man. Al Jurgensen, he's a legend, and it's kind of like he does it kind of like how Trent Reznor does 9 Inch Nails. Like other guys, like the other positions are rotating. One guitarist might be on for 2 albums when then he's gone, But Filth Pig, it's a vibe. It's a vibe. A steampunk Rob Zombie-ish Trent Reznor-ish vibe, and I'm here for it.
That's a good sales pitch. Because if you tell me the name of the or the CD's Filth Pig, I'm assuming it's like scream music where it's like death metal, and that's not what this is.
Well, the title was a response to the British House of Parliament, in which they referred to Al Jurgensen as a filthy pig for his onstage theatrics. So I don't know if you've seen the cover art for Filth Pig, but it's basically a guy in a suit with a American flag in his hand, and it looks like his brain is like showing. I can't
Okay.
tell if it's just like some guts on top of his head or if it's supposed to be his head exposed, the top of his head. But it's a pretty gnarly cover.
Oh, it's like a guy holding an American flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of gnarly. I like that. So what does it sound like though? Like is it like so it sounds like a Rob Zombie music?
It's
So
like
it's got
Rob Zombie, with some Trent Reznor, man. I mean, that's probably the best way for me to describe it. It's got some like electronic, a la Prodigy kind of vibes.
Okay.
Filth Pig, like, but his most popular album was Psalm 69, which precedes this. It's the album before Filth Pig, and Filth Pig, it's kind of darker. So if I was to suggest ministry to someone, I would start with Psalm 69, which is also a cool album name.
Well, in Wikipedia, the genre of music is called industrial metal plus sludge metal, whatever that
Okay.
is. So I'm interested, Steve. I thought this was death metal when I heard
Yeah.
it, but I'm gonna have to listen to it. I like to be. I need something else other than R&B and rap because I've had enough of hearing how many bitches people are getting. I need something else now. I need to want to kill somebody for a little bit to get to that next level.
I felt that. And on that same day in 1996, Eazy-E would posthumously release Straight Off the Streets of motherfucking Compton.
Where does Eazy-E stack up in the annals for you, Steve?
I would probably say not even in my top 50 because he wasn't really an artist like that. He was a businessman, a good businessman at this. And, you know, when Ice Cube isn't writing your rhymes or Dr. Dre isn't producing your beats, like what do you have to stand on? So I do appreciate his voice. I do think Eazy-E has one of the most recognizable, coolest voices in the history of hip hop, man. But there were some tracks from this album that I added, old school shit, Nuts on Your Chin, The Motherfucking Real, Hit the Hooker, Licking, Sucking, Fucking. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It sounds good, Steve. And here's one question I always wanted to ask somebody that might know more than me is that, I've watched the documentaries, I've watched the movies, and I liked Eazy-E, and I still like Eazy-E. I think he's fun to listen to, and I agree with you about his voice. Do you think that the situation that they showed in Straight Outta Compton, the movie, where he was just some guy that was in the street, like I know that part's real, but they basically told him how to talk so it came off good when they recorded the song? Do you think that that's how that happened? It just
Well,
seemed
they had
very
to
dramatic, like very easy. Like, no pun intended. It seemed kind of an easy way for it to go down in the movie. And I always wondered if that was true because it kind of takes it all away from you. If it's just as easy as being like, yeah, just say it like this, you know?
well, I mean, obviously they had to condense a lot, man, but he had to be coached. He had to be coached, man, because he was not an artist. Like Ice Cube, that was his intent, that was his goal. Dr. Dre, he was already doing music. Eazy-E was a street guy. He was
Yeah.
selling crack.
Obviously, like I got more familiar with him after he passed because we were younger, he wasn't really on my radar too much. And then, like, obviously, he passed away, and then like that Bone Thug song came out. They kind of featured him in the video a little bit, like in honor. And I looked into him at that point when I was a teenager and stuff. But I mean, I always have a little bit easy pop up on my playlist. It's just old as fuck. It's not this. It's like the first shit with like NWA. That's kind of what I always associate him with.
Make sure you add nuts on the chin
I
to the
mean,
playlist.
licking, sucking, fucking. It sounds great, So I'll add this in. I'm gonna work out after this. So straight out of the streets of motherfucking Compton, I'm gonna put it on, Steve. We'll see how many saves I get.
And that's fucking with a PH. On
Yeah,
that same day in 96, Total would release their self-titled debut, Total. And it's the one with Can't You See? This is when Bad Boy was, I wouldn't say fully hitting their stride because Mace isn't there yet, but man, I was fucking with Bad Boy heavy. Big
yeah.
was still alive. Puffy, we didn't know he was a complete creep.
No idea. I just thought he was a cool dude that wore shiny shit.
We all did.
Yeah.
Well, I did.
Shout out to Dave Chappelle's monologue on SNL because he had some hilarious stuff about that situation. But back to this. Yeah, I'm with you because I mean, I think everybody was. I was a West Coast guy, like I said, but everybody was into Bad Boy. They were just throwing out hit after hit, even for like movie soundtracks and shit. Like that Godzilla song and stuff. You know what I'm talking about? That shit was hot as hell. And the
With
videos were
Jimmy
tight.
Page. But yeah, man, Total. I think they put one other album out after this, and they were finito. But
That
At
one
the
song
time,
though, "Can't You See?" Everybody knows that.
oh yeah, man, that's a classic. And at the time, I think most of us weren't aware of the bad boy curse. We didn't. We thought, hey man, this is a successful group. This is a successful act. They're going to be here forever. Craig Mack, Big, Total, yeah. And then
It all fell apart.
yeah, and when he's the mastermind behind it all. Like, damn, it's like, is this a coincidence? Like, they either die, something weird happens, they go to jail, or they just fall off, and we just forget about them.
Do you think he killed Biggie? Because that's what now I keep seeing that come back up. Where that was always kind of a rumor, especially like when people were starting to like really talk shit about Diddy before he got like the allegations. But I forget who it was. Like 50 Cent's always been shooting fire at P Diddy for the longest time. He might have been the one that said it, but I always just wondered like, why do people say that? And then why would he have done that? Unless Biggie was trying to get out of his contract.
He was, because
Yeah.
he was up close and personal with this creep. So it's
Oh,
like the stuff that we see now because of several testimonies, he was seeing in real time. And then I'm sure he died in 97. It probably took him only a couple years of like, damn, this dude's a scumbag.
oh, Puff got a bunch of what's up with the baby oil, Puff? Ugh.
Ugh. But
The
on,
hell.
on that same day in 96, future basketball Hall of Famer Magic Johnson comes out of a 5-year retirement. He helps the LA Lakers to a 128 to 118 win over Golden State. Hey,
I don't
man.
remember like after he came back, like is he successful? Like was he wasn't in, like the old Magic, but
He wasn't the old Magic, and I don't think they even made the playoffs. This is the Lakers that still had Nick Van Exel and Eldon Campbell, I think. But I do remember watching these games, man. This was halfway through our 7th grade year, and people didn't want to guard him.
yeah, I mean
So
there was still that thing, man. You know, it took he said he's hit everybody knew for 5 years, but it's just people couldn't get used to that shit, dude. I think that's
so
hilarious now, but I mean he came back. Isn't that crazy though? There's people just dropping dead. Magic, take a 5-year break, just come back, play professional basketball again. That's pretty fucking awesome.
yeah, man. So shout out to Magic, bro. 1997, that following year, Seinfeld is airing season 8, episode 13, The Comeback. George goes to great lengths to respond to a coworker's joke. Jerry learns his tennis pro is terrible, and Elaine falls for a sensitive video store clerk. Hilarity ensues.
Yeah, dude. This is a George episode. Like, this is a great one, Steve.
Oh
Um,
man.
and we start this off with George. He's working with the Yankees. That's where we're at now in the series. And, you know, they got some shrimp cocktail on the table, and he's facing it, Steve. He's inhaling shrimp.
Like Pimp C, I eat so much shrimp, I got iodine poisoning.
I mean, you need to take a breath, but he's hammering these shrimp. And as he's doing that, the guy across the table from him, I think the guy's name's Riley,
Riley, yeah.
he's like, "Hey, George, the ocean called. They're running out of shrimp." And everyone's like, "Ah!" George is sitting there like, "Oh, fuck." And he can't, just like every time this happens to you in life, Steve, he can't think anything right there. He's just consumed with embarrassment, I guess. But,
Hey, that's the worst.
yeah,
It,
dude.
and you cut to him on his way back home from work, and he's thinking of it, his comeback. And he's like, the jerk store called, and they're running out of you. Oh, that's what I should have said. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what happens, Steve. 5 minutes later, 10 minutes, you figured it out. You figured out the poison dart that could have just gotten through the defenses, but little too late. Later, George is with Jerry at the tennis club. Steve, the tennis club. He's discussing this, and he tells Jerry what he should have said. Jerry's like, "Oh yeah, that's great." I don't think it gets the applause George was hoping for. But run it by a comedian, Steve. I think that would be my first go-to. This guy's a king of going after people like this, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, he tells him that's what he said, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you said that?" It's like, well, no, that's what I should have said. I thought of it on the way home.
Yeah. And, I don't see George playing tennis either. I just wanted to put that out there. But hey, getting a couple of tips from the comedian. Then we cut to the local video store, Steve. And for those of you too young to know what this is where you used to go to rent videos. Okay. Champagne Video, very classy establishment. And Elaine's looking, she's perusing the stands, which was so much fun. I used to love doing this. I miss it. And she goes over to the employee selection area because that's where the hot tips really come into. And she's looking at Vincent and his artistic tastes that he has up there because he's watching stuff like, Schindler's List. What's the one that you watched this week, Steve? What's the one with Claire Danes?
Great Expectations.
Great
with Gwyneth Paltrow?
Expectations. Yeah, I'm sorry, Claire. They look the same. I just like to say that. But Vincent, Steve, are you? Is that where you're going when you go to the employee section? Or are you going more Porky's or whatever? The other guy, Gene or whatever.
I think depends on how old I am.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
You weren't a 10-year-old kid watching Schindler's List, Steve?
of course not. I think Kramer mentions that he's going to watch Other Side of Darkness.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. He's going a little artistic, but he's making fun of Elaine for her hoity-toity behavior. We cut from the store. We're at Jerry's, and Kramer did watch some of that video, and it got in his head, Steve, because that video has a woman going into a coma, and Kramer can't have that, Steve. He ain't having that. He's in his head fully about the possibility that this could happen to him, and he's got to figure out what to do in that event.
Yeah, he wants to die with character, and he gives Jerry the okay. He fully entrusts his friend Jerry to cut off his life support if that ever happens to him. And
That's
he's like,
heavy.
dude, yeah, this isn't a legal binding document. I think he gives him a piece of paper. It's just like, dude, I think you need to talk to a lawyer. Well, I can't talk to a lawyer. Jackie Childs, he has a restraining order against me.
I love that. Shout out Jackie Childs, by the way. We miss Jackie Childs. I love that character. And then we go to Elaine's. She's loving Vincent's movie pick that she got. She's in tears.
Bravo, Vincent. Bravo.
But as the movie finishes up, she gets a call, and it's Vincent, Steve. And he's like, "Did you enjoy the selection?" And that would creep me out. But turns out Vincent saw her get it, looked her number up in the database, and he feels a nice little genuine connection with Elaine because she's obviously got great taste,
Yeah, this is total grounds for firing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely call the cops or at least call the store and let them know some shenanigans are going on with Vince. But we go back to the tennis club because this is a thing in New York. There's tennis clubs everywhere. And now Elaine's with Jerry and she's explaining the Vincent situation. Jerry's like, what the fuck? And she's like, yeah, he looked up my number. I rented this movie. And we just talked for hours on the phone after that, which is hilarious. I mean, she's thirsty, Steve.
Vincent caught her at the right time in life, I guess. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, hey, man, they're ripe for the picking. Just, timing.
Yeah.
And like this ball just keeps coming over to where they're sitting at. This tennis ball keeps flying over, and it's the same guy. And Jerry finally turns around and he realizes that that ball is being hit by Milos, the guy who sold him the tennis racket.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, what? This horrible tennis player that's been batting this tennis ball over here is you? But they don't even say anything. Milos notices that Jerry sees him. He's like, oh shit.
He gets nervous, and Jerry's like, dude, I fucking dropped $200 on that racket from this guy, and he fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Milos is, he looks creepy. Milos is definitely running from some crimes in Europe, but Jerry's down 200 for a racket. We go back to his place, and George comes in, and he's loving life right at this moment because he's like, look, I got another meeting with the dudes. and I got a way. I'm going to get this guy back in. So he says the exact same thing. That ocean comment and the shrimp thing, he's going to say it again. And boom, I'm going to hit him with the fucking jerk store called. And now there's a bunch of cooks in the kitchen, Steve, and he's getting too much info. They're like, you should say this. You should say this. He's like, nah, no, I thought of it.
That's the problem when I'm dealing with groups of people. Everyone has their own idea and their own opinion. It's the jerk store. We're going with the jerk store.
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, I trust the professional stand-up comedian, but George, he's committed. Kramer, he sees that Jerry has taken that old racket that he had that he threw out when he bought that Milos racket. Well, Kramer sees that old racket in the trash, or just out of the trash. He's like, "What are you doing?" And Jerry's like, "Oh, that guy's a scumbag. This racket's still good." And Kramer's like, "Dude, you can't let it go. You can't let anything go. I can't let you be the executor of my state. You're just gonna let me fucking sit there like a vegetable in a coma. I can't trust you."
I want to die with dignity.
Yeah. So now he pivots to Elaine because he's like, you know what? You're a psychopath. So I think I'm going to go with you, Elaine, because you'll pull the plug on anything.
You're a stern businesswoman, and she's like, oh. So they cut to where they do the business for his estate, and the guy, what is his role?
Well, he's just a lawyer. So first of all, that's Ben Stein, Steve. That's my guy,
Stein.
Ben Stein. Bueller. But you got to have a lawyer draw up the contract because basically this is a legally binding contract at this point,
Right.
Steve. So Ben Stein's going through every possibility. He's like, so what if you get crippled but you can smell? And Frasier's like, pull the plug, And then Elaine starts getting real loose and goosey with it, where she's like, well, what if this happened? She's like, pull it, pull it, pull it. And Kramer's like, I don't know.
Yank it like you're starting to mow.
Yeah, dude.
One more.
But Elaine's, I mean, I guess that's what you wanted, Steve. She's not going to get held down by any sort of sentimentality here. So Kramer's got somebody to pull the plug. We go back to the tennis place again. And Jerry just comes at Milos and he's like, dude, what's up with this? Why are you lying? Like, why'd you do this? I'm like, he's like, well, I'll pay. You can have your money back. He's like, it's not about the money, dude. Like, you fucking rip me off.
Dude, I'll lose my business if anyone finds out. How about this? I'll give you free year membership. He's like, you could do that?
Yeah.
Well, let me go to the back and see. So he goes to the back and he notices a little honey standing to the side. He's like, oh, okay. Milos comes back. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I can't do that. Is there anything else I can do to make up for it? And then I think Jerry just walks off. And
he's like, nah, dude.
Yeah. And then he starts flirting with the chick on the way out.
Tennis, anyone? And she, she gets a little like nice magical connection there, Steve. So Jerry runs out on a high note. He's still out that 200, but that's just a fucking one night at Caroline, Steve. He'll get that back. So cut back to Champagne Video again. And Elaine, she's looking at another Vincent Select, Pain and Yearning. But she's emotionally exhausted from the other night. So Kramer's like, let's pop over to the Gene side of everything. Maybe instead of Pain and Yearning, maybe a little Weekend at Bernie's Do. Now that's a hilarious premise. So yeah. Elaine goes with that because everybody wants to, laugh a little bit. I don't know, Steve. I don't know. Vincent, he's always watching apparently. So he might have caught on.
Because you cut to Elaine's and she's watching Weekend at Bernie's. She's like, Bernie is dead, you morons.
Sunglasses, that's it? Jesus Christ. But then her phone rings. Fucking Vincent, Steve. And now it's not romantic or sexy sounding. He just sounds kind of agitated. And he's like, you took home the Gene pick? You cheated, bitch. And then he just hangs up. Yeah. Her last love's gone, Steve.
And then we cut back to George's meeting, and he finds out that Riley's not even there. She's like, dude, what happened to Riley? Oh, he doesn't work here anymore. He's in Ohio. And dude, we only wake you up for the important things.
Yeah, because I mean, he's facing Shrimp again because he has to get that same situation. He's trying to recreate a moment, Steve. So everything leading up to it, including eating at least a pound of shrimp in front of people with no regard to your self-respect, he gets played again. We only bring you up here for the big meetings, George. And everyone's laughing. George just still has a mouthful of shrimp and whatever that cocktail sauce. He's pissed. He's not going to get his golden moment. I mean, that's what happens, Steve. You just don't, it never comes. There's no perfect moment out there, guys. You think you're going to have like this moment that you want, this juicy, succulent moment. It's never going to happen. That's not how the world works.
You keep it in the holster though for those scenarios. Sometimes it does fall into your lap. Like, Stevie, you got big ears. Oh, something for your mama to hold on. Oh, I should have said that.
Nice.
Oh,
Get
time. Next time. Ooh.
Yep. Keep it in the holsters, Steve. Keep the gun on safety though. You don't want to pop that out just for anybody. So, but then we cut back to just Jerry on the street. He gets home, and that hottie from the tennis club, she's been waiting at his place, Steve.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh shit, okay, tennis, honey, what's up? And she's like basically just like, let's go upstairs now. You know, she's got like a thick accent. She's good to go though. And he's like, oh, did I win the fucking lottery? I got a fucking dick suck waiting for me on my doorstep. This is great. So they go upstairs. And she's getting ready to fuck, but she starts crying as soon as they get close. She's like, I cannot do it. Milos is my husband. He asked me to sleep with you. I can't.
But then while that's going on, we cut to Kramer and he's eating this big bowl of spaghetti and he's watching The Other Side of Darkness. And he realizes that the character comes out of the coma. So he just has a mind fuck like, whoa. And then you go back to Jerry. He's talking to George now. He's like, wait, so he offered his wife as a medieval sexual payola?
Yeah. But she couldn't do it, Steve. So Kramer comes in and he's like, yo, do you know that the lady in that movie I was watching like gets out of the coma? I didn't even know that was possible. I thought you were just stuck. And I'm like, they're like, well, you didn't know that? I found it weird that you didn't know that was possible.
I didn't know that was possible. That was possible.
Yeah. So now Kramer's got to rethink that whole shebang. But then we go back to Champagne Video, Steve. And because, I mean, Elaine's here every day just trying to make this connection with Vincent, trying to find movie selects. She goes over to that wall, but there's no Vincent section. It's just a couple of Gene sections now. And she's like, yo, where's Vincent? And the guy's like, he's no longer making selections.
There was a selection.
Oh, betrayal.
Betrayal, yeah. That was his last selection. And then he got replaced by Gene. And then, so one of the other video store clerks comes along, tells her that Vincent isn't there anymore. She's like, well, I don't know what to pick. Well, we have a wider array of Gene. Gene's trash. I'm Gene. Oh, hi, Gene.
Ouch. So then, Jerry, we go back to the tennis place, and now Jerry's confronting Milos about the trafficking situation that was tried to happen. And Milos now is in tears because his wife can't respect him anymore, Steve. He gave her up to get a little favor with Jerry, but now she doesn't respect him. She doesn't respect his tennis skills. She can't respect him as a man. So Milos is like, I'm on Front Street here right now, sir. Can you please throw a couple of games and let my wife watch me beat you in tennis so I can get some of my steez back? Please.
And Jerry's like, man, as long as there are no other girls around, because I want to be a man too.
In playing tennis, yeah. But Milos, he's got this set up. This guy's skeezy, Steve. He's willing to really just go like lie his ass off, just in no matter the situation. I don't like that.
We cut to the cafe, and Elaine tells Jerry that Vincent sent her a play button from his VCR, And as they're talking, George comes in. He's like, Riley's in Ohio. I'll be there first thing in the morning.
He just can't help it, Steve. This is psychotic. But I mean, you're doing it on the Yankees Bills, Steve. So fuck it.
Fuck it.
Doesn't matter. Just be petty. So he's off on his way to Akron in the morning. Cut to Elaine's, and Elaine's watching another movie because I mean she's a cinephile apparently, and she gets a call from Vincent, and she asks to meet him. She's like, "I gotta meet this guy. Like, you're fantastic."
You can't see me.
Yeah, and she's like, "Vincent, please, please," and he's like, "Okay, I'll do it, but you have to bring some stuff for me." And she's like, okay, so I will meet you. She makes some arrangements. She's got to pick some stuff up from the store.
We go to Ben Stein's office, Shellbach, because Kramer, he was supposed to have an appointment, a meeting with him, and he's late. He was supposed to be there at 10:30, but he got there at like 2 p.m. And Shellbach's assistant tells him that he's at a tennis match. So it's the same place where Jerry goes for his tennis lessons, I guess.
Yeah, and the reason he's so late is that now he's so scared of everything. He doesn't want to be put into a coma or anything, that he's driving like 5 miles an hour in traffic to get to where he's going. So that's why. So we cut to the tennis place. Kramer's en route, but Jerry's throwing these games. Milos is not playing well, obviously. He's sweating. He's hitting the ball like a toddler. And Jerry's just like, too good. Too good.
Man, you got me again.
Milos's
He's not a
wife.
man.
Yeah, and this is it, Steve. He can't just live in just the win. He's got to just really throw some shade at Jerry. So he starts doing that, insulting him, and Jerry's getting a little pissed.
This Jerry, he's not even married like I am. Oh, look at crybaby. Oh, no, make it hurt no more. Little man, he won't be a man.
Milos's wife is like, "You are the man I love again," but Jerry's pissed. Vincent, we cut to where Elaine's meeting Vincent. We assume it's his apartment. She gets there with a bag of stuff. She knocks on the door, but it only opens a little bit. It's dark inside, and the guy's like, "Just leave it there. I don't want to meet you." And she's like, "No, I'm here. Please, please.
Don't shut me out."
Yeah, don't shut me out, Vincent." But turns out it's not all it's cracked up to be here, Steve, because then a lady shows up, and it's not Vincent's wife or, maybe a significant other. It's his mother, Steve.
Yeah.
And she's got a bag of fireworks, liquor, and cigarettes. Like, this is the Foot Clan layer. And the lady's like, "This kid's 15. Who the fuck are you?" And Vincent's just a pimply-faced teenager, Steve.
Oh, my acne. And by the way, did he send you part of our VCR? And she's got it around her neck as a necklace, and she just gives it.
But she keeps that little bottle of vodka that she has and just turns tail. So she almost committed some kind of sexual misconduct here, Steve. She was trying to also give a minor a lot of illegal shit. So get out of there, Elaine. You don't want to get caught up in that.
Before Chris Hansen does.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the... She showed up basically like a child molester. What are you doing with all that? She was one moment away from that, but she got away. So cut back to the tennis place, and now Jerry's putting it on, Steve. He says, "Fuck the bullshit. It's time to put the skills to the test." And he's making a fool out of Milos, Steve.
Yeah, and he sends a slam. It knocks Milos over, making him throw the racket up. The racket hits another tennis player in the head. The tennis player falls onto the ball machine, and the ball machine just goes haywire, shooting shots right as Kramer arrives, and he gets knocked upside the head by multiple tennis balls.
Yeah. I mean, this is a Final Destination moment, Steve. It all happened.
Right there.
God knows if he's okay. Hopefully he's not in a coma, because we know what Elaine's about to do if that's the case. So then we cut to Akron, Ohio, Steve. George
Ohio
has finally made it. He's sitting in front of Riley. He is fucking facing the shrimp again. Riley brings out the joke. He's like, "Hey, George, ocean called, shrimp's out." George throws the jerk store thing at him right on time, Steve. Perfect. But Riley, dude, he's a Def Comedy Jam comic so he's ready. He throws the reverse back on him and is like, why would they call me? You're the biggest seller. And it just gets a huge pop. Now, George, I mean, he's got nothing, Steve. He never thought of that, you know? He didn't
Oh
go
yeah.
that far.
Well, I had sex with your wife.
Oh.
Oh. His wife was in a coma.
That was remember when you're like, and it was probably never true, but when you said your mama joke like in school and somebody's like, his wife's dead, but or his mom's dead, but or something, it's like,
Man.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that sucks. You know, we've all been there, Steve.
And we skipped over this because like that was actually Kramer's suggestion when he's telling the rest of the crew about like, oh, the jerk store, and Elaine says something, Jerry says something, and Kramer's like, dude, just tell him you had sex with his wife.
I didn't even catch that. I love that. Spot on, Kramer. I like that advice. Don't go with the other Kramer advice, which is just spout racial slurs out and crazy indiscriminately.
In the multiverse.
But then we cut to the hospital. Jerry's just by Kramer's bedside. Elaine comes in. She brought a VCR and a tape for Kramer so they can watch something. He's still asleep. But as she's looking for like an outlet to plug the VCR in, there's none open. So she unplugs something else, which is his like his heart monitor or something. But she pulls the plug, Steve.
Right when she does that, Kramer wakes up. Like, oh
and that's it, Steve. I mean, again, Elaine, she might be the angel of death now that we see that. But we cut to the credits, and George, he's on his way back from the airport. He's like, wife in a coma, has another epiphany and just does a full Yui on the highway to get back to the airport because he's going back to Akron, Steve.
well, the life support machine called. Wait. Yeah, that's what I should have said.
He's going back to Akron.
Great show, great episode. I love how they wove all of those stories in together.
Yeah. And it's quick. Like it's like a quick scene back to something else. And it all sets up it's great. I mean, there's a reason the show's so famous.
Great television, man. That following year, 1998, Deep Rising premieres. A group of heavily armed hijackers board a luxury ocean liner in the South Pacific Ocean to loot it, only to do battle with a series of large-sized, tentacled, man-eating sea creatures who had already invaded the ship. Directed by Stephen Sommers, starring Treat Williams, Famke Janssen, Anthony Heald, Kevin J. O'Connor, Wes Studi, Derek O'Connor, Jason Fleming, and Jaimin Hansu.
Or as we call him, Dijon mustard in our household, because we can't pronounce that. But there's a lot of these 90s action horror movies. There was a movie called The Relic that came out. There were movies like Anaconda that were soon to come out after this that were like creature feature movies. And that's kind of what this is. They weave like a sort of heist movie type situation with a creature feature. And I think the thing that set this movie back more than anything is just the lack of special effects. Because I think that was one of the things that it actually got delayed for like a year when I read about the behind the scenes, because they were trying to figure out how to pull off like this giant octopus thing. But I had fun, man. I think this is a fun, like it's a quick movie. It's not 2 hours. It's got 90s stars galore. I mean, Treat Williams, he's like a Harrison Ford type, you know? He's just like that sort of like casual hero who just can handle anything type situation.
Well, he was on par to actually have the same success as Harrison Ford. He was a part of that school, that class, but he even fessed up in some interview that he had a like heavy drug addiction in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Well, he kills this. I think he's a serviceable guy in this. Famke Janssen, before she's the Phoenix, before she's Jean Grey, she did a good job. She was just kind of like a sexy cat burglar in this. This is the guy I wanted to call out. Kevin J. O'Connor, this squeaky voice guy who kind of looks like he's the son of Clint Howard. He's just like this ugly dude was in like a lot of 90s movies. He was in this. He was in a movie that we covered called Virtuosity. He was like a nerdy guy in that. And I think he
Yeah.
was in the Mummy franchise too. He was like sort of the same character, but tagging along as like a scummy dude hanging around with Brendan Fraser in those movies.
That's his
Um,
type.
yeah, he's just that guy. But he's great in this. Clifton Powell's in this. We just talked about him in Phantoms last week. He's
Yeah.
getting the rounds. Jason Fleming, he's a Guy Ritchie actor. He was in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and he was also one of the pikey gang members that hung out with Mickey in Snatch. He just had like a big mullet, and he just looked crazy as he does in this. But even like it's got Sagat from Street Fighter 2's in it. It's just a lot of guys you saw in like 90s action movies all in one thing. I loved it. Kano from Mortal Kombat's in it.
Anthony Heald, I always thought he looked like a true value Nick Nolte.
Yeah, hell yeah. That guy, he's always that he was the villain in Bushwhacked, Steve.
He was.
He was basically the same guy in Bushwhacked cuz he's sort of like a dirty I mean he is the villain in this basically, other than the octopus. But I enjoyed it. I didn't like that they ended it with like a cheap. They get out, they blow up the ship, they get to a deserted island, but then it ends with like them being like, "Yeah, we're fine here," and then like some monsters on the island, like this, the world's just infested with gigantic monsters.
An
You know,
ominous ending. Yeah, like is it supposed to be the octopus again? Because they can't live on land, can they?
I mean, I don't know what the hell it was. I was assuming it was like a King Kong type thing or something, but they were just trying their best. They made one good, decent movie, and then they were trying to have another one. But Treat, he's not going to carry a franchise like this. But I'll give this one credit, Steve. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, like I went into it ready to shit on it, but it wasn't bad. And R.I.P. to Treat Williams, man. He had actually passed away in 2023, I believe, due to a car accident. But
Damn, I didn't know
yeah,
that. Fuck, shit. R.I.P. Treat Williams. You killed this.
but on that same day in 98, Desperate Measures premieres. Frank Connor is an honest police officer who desperately needs to save his son's life. However, after losing all hope, he finds out that a criminal, Peter McCabe, is in jail, is his only savior. Directed by Barbet Schroeder, starring Michael Keaton, Andy Garcia, Brian Cox, and Marcia Gay Harden.
Yeah, and I watched this as a younger person. I remembered liking it. I forgot about the aspect of this movie where a kid named Matt has leukemia, so that kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
True to
Forgot
life.
about that part. But I mean, this is really just a movie about a dad who loves his kid so much that he's willing to do anything it takes to make this like one thing happen that's going to save his son's life, and that's getting a bone marrow transplant from a psychopathic genius, basically played by Michael Keaton.
And did you know that this was set in, or not set, but shot in Pittsburgh, Michael Keaton's hometown?
I love that. I did not know that, but I just think this was I don't think this is like the greatest movie of all time, but I feel like they pulled this one off because there's a lot of like crazy like showcase scenes in this where like they're blowing up fucking hospitals, and they're going like there's car chases, there's a fucking kid with leukemia. I mean, they got it all, Steve.
I can't give a fair assessment on the movie until I get some intel from you because you lived this, you experienced this. How
Yes.
difficult was it to find a donor for you?
Here's where I was like trying to think of this, because this kid did everything I did. The whole kill your immune system, you're in a bubble thing. I had to do all that. So that's accurate. The finding of a match for me, I don't know if it was intense because they had to find my match in Australia. Like
Australia.
it was a
Wow.
worldwide search. So the person that I found was a lovely lady in Australia, and it took 8 months of a whole organization trying to find a match, which they eventually did. So it's hard for sure because
Okay.
even like I don't know, but the bone marrow part, I'm not sure if that's the same as a stem cell thing, but even like what they do to Keaton to get the bone marrow out, I had to get all that. It's very like medically accurate in terms of what they have to do. I'll say that. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, dude, I think that part of it's accurate. I think it's like interesting to think about. Maybe somebody that wrote this like kind of went through like the medical part of it, but to think like the one person is this heinous psycho, I love that, you know.
Yeah, because I thought it was utterly ridiculous that they went through these links, but from hearing your testimony, it is pretty difficult to the point where you had to go to another continent to
Yeah.
find a donor,
Well,
man.
and also
So
I had the internet. You know what I'm saying? It's like there were people
yeah,
communicating all over the world, and like here they had to like hack into the FBI database to figure out these names and go through these lists. So yeah, dude, I mean it's pretty accurate. I don't know if Kendra would have gone to these links to save my life. She did a lot, but you know, fucking what's his face, the dad in this? I can't think of the actor's name at the
Andy
moment, but
Garcia.
Andy Garcia, dude. I love him in a lot of stuff. He was great in The Untouchables, but in this movie, dude, he's a cop and he just basically says fuck it. And like the amount of cops and civilians that die as a result of him just trying to save his son's life, it's crazy that he doesn't go to jail as long as Michael Keaton's supposed to go to jail because he's responsible for like massive deaths, Steve.
Yeah,
Like
like
in a good cause, like everybody gets it, but they're like, dude, like there's like a death count of like 80 people at this point. This is crazy.
it's like Dahmer
We're
times
happy
mansion.
we're happy Matthew's gonna live, but I mean, dude, for God's sake.
The casualties.
Dude, Keaton's so good as a villain, though. I That's one thing when I was watching this, seeing him as like a psycho. It's a little over the top, but I mean, he goes Sarah Connor on that guy and puts like sulfuric acid in his neck and shit. It's so good.
Yeah,
He's so
man. I mean,
capable.
seeing Batman go dark and become a bad guy. I mean, he's good. He's a
Hey,
great actor, man.
he's even like heartless to the kid. Like he's still like nice to the kid, but he's like, somebody tell that kid, that dad, that his dead kid's gonna fucking. He's just like completely ambivalent to this kid's life or not. You know?
I can see why we're related. No, we're
Yeah.
not. Yeah, sure we are, kid.
Yeah, yeah, dude. I wish we got more because he's played a villain. I mean, he played a villain in Spider-Man. He's great at it, dude. He's a great actor. I just don't think Keaton gets enough credit for like
He
that
doesn't.
part of it.
Where does he play? In just off the top of your head, is he top 20 actors of all time for you?
It's tough because I don't know if he has like the prolifics of some other people, but yeah, I would put him up there just because of the nostalgia of like the Batman franchise, if nothing else, you know, and Mr. Mom
Beetlejuice.
and Beetlejuice. Um, Yeah, dude. For me, I think he's again. We're running out of true movie stars, and he's one of the ones from a bygone era. I feel like that we're not going to have guys like that anymore at some
Uh,
point.
Any callbacks, honorable mentions, or takeaways?
Well, I do have my '90s trivia, Steve. Do you want to just try to pop one out? Or pause. Do you want to just try to answer a question real quick?
I want to redeem myself. Yeah, it
I
was
don't
two for
know.
two
My
last
dad,
time.
George Leroy, got some fucking heavy hitting questions on this, so I don't blame you for missing out. Okay. Okay, you got this, Steve. You got this. Which singer had a hit with Baby Got Back?
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
When it comes to females, Cosmo ain't got nothing to do with my selection. 36, 24, 36. Only if she's 5'3". Mm-mm-mm-mm. And then which fashion designer created Madonna's famous pointy coned bra for her 1990 Blonde Ambition World Tour, Steve?
Oh man, Versace.
Jean Paul Gaultier, Steve. He made those pointy tits famous.
He sure
But
did.
you got 50%, Steve. You got the Sir Mix-a-Lot question. Eventually, you're going to get it. You're still
Yeah.
an A student in the 90s in my book, so don't feel bad. What about you? Any callbacks or, pustules or disgustingness that you want to talk about?
In 1991, Seinfeld is airing the pony remark, and people say that that's a turnaround point for the series. At first, I kind of wanted to do two Seinfelds in different eras, but I was like, maybe another time. I think we should do that for one show one of these days when we kind of find that sweet spot of uh having that on the timeline, one in like the beginning era, another
That would
like
be
towards
interesting, and especially for something that's been like long, like we was like 90 and all the way to the net, like the end of the decade, whatever that
and
would be.
yeah, I mean, we kind of have that with Martin right now, man, between season 2 and the final season. But there was that, and X-Men is airing Captive Hearts, and there's like another sect of X-Men or mutants that live in the sewer,
Oh, the
and
Morlocks, hell yeah, dude.
the Morlocks. And I just remember one of the Morlocks had this groan of a sound. It's like you gotta watch this episode, bro, because like, or at least this part, because whether Wolverine or Cyclops like encounters the little dude, and he's like, oh, I was like, "What? Is that how he talks?"
Maybe you heard Slutfest 96, Steve. Maybe that's what it was.
And Family Matters is airing the episode Crazier for You, and this is the final episode before they go on a hiatus, and then they wrap up the rest of the season during the summer. So Family Matters, they'll keep us busy throughout the summer. So thank you, Miller Boyette. And it's weird because this, I think, is the first episode with the new Harriet Winslow, who is played by Gina's mom.
What the?
Yeah, it's weird, man. So they needed someone to fill in that spot, and Harriet, the OG Harriet, had enough, man. She's like, yeah, I'm tapped out. Fuck this
You
shit.
couldn't just write her all like do what they did with Gina, where she's like on a business trip for the whole season. You know, they just have to call somebody. I guess not. She just didn't want to be on the show.
Yeah, she yeah, they've seen it, been
Oh,
through it.
I'm done with this guy.
But please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Please tell your sister, take me away. Oh, take me away. Away. Bitch. Check out Fruit Show Fanatics as well as Crushgasm and our guy Clark the Shark on podcast. So this is Steve G and Mad G with
Happened in the 90s.
Matt was the fat kid, Steve was the flat kid. Life wasn't always great, but you know what was? The 90s. Happened in the 90s. Yeah!
Happened in the 90s.